Hi everyone, I'm Pat Prokop. A lot of people ask me, how do you connect your telescope from outside into your inside computer, and what are the software packages needed to operate the system? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the telescope in itself, and this is the scope right here, and this is the Eon, the Orion Eon 130 millimeter telescope. Now, it's not so much the telescope itself, but it's the mount that you're really connecting to your computer and operating the telescope through the mount itself. And so how do I connect to that? Well, one of the things I do use is the remote desktop connection in Windows. Now, you can also use Google connection, remote connection, but on this example, I'm going to be using the remote desktop connection through Windows. So the first thing to do, of course, is let's go outside and take a look at the telescope and the connections and the mini computer that I have operating out there. So with that being said, let's go outside.
So the scope outside is connected through the inside computer with this computer up here. This is a mini computer, and it's only held on by Velcro right now. And I do have a couple USB connections on that, plus a USB hub connected to it to help with that. And it's a 12-volt system, so it just uses the standard 12-volt battery or 12-volt connection that you have with your system. And on my system, I have two 12-volt power supplies, both at 10 amps. So I want to make sure I have plenty of power going into the telescope. I may be overkilling a little bit, but there have been times in the past where I had problems with controlling the telescope because I wasn't getting enough amperage to the drive motors. So that's important that you have enough power going into your system. Once you start adding dew straps and the dew straps kick on, it draws a lot more power than what you might think. And in the process, you could start losing your control of the mount itself. Well, speaking of the mount, this is it right here. In this example, this is the EQR6 Pro, the Skywatcher EQR6 Pro mount. And I put duct tape on these cables here just to help them from any stress going into the connection. Now, it's important to connect the mount to the computer. And on this mount, there is a USB port that I can connect directly from the mount into the computer itself. Now, some mounts don't have a USB connection and you have to go through the hand controller, and that's okay too, but it's more convenient if you have a USB connection right into the mount itself. And here's the power supply right here. So first things first though, it's very important, and I can't stress this enough, if you're doing any long-term exposures like 3 to 5 minutes or even up to 10 minutes exposure time, your mount must be perfectly balanced and perfectly polar aligned. Well, not perfect, but doggone close to perfect as you can get it to get accurate guiding throughout the nighttime hours. And that's very important to polar align the scope. The first step I do when I do the initial setup is I use the a polar alignment camera. In this case, it's the QHY Polemaster, and it just hooks on into here itself. And I just take off this little cover here, and it just slips on like so. And you want to keep this at about 9 o'clock. And you connect that to your software, to the computer and the software, and just follow the instructions on the software to polar align. Then once I get it roughly polar aligned with the QHY camera Polemaster, it should be pretty close, but it's always a little bit off. And the closer you can get to polar alignment, perfectly polar aligned, the better off you're going to be. So the next step I do after this is, this is before every session I start, if I'm going to be doing any long-term exposures, I use the 3-point polar alignment in Nina to zero in on that polar alignment. And the 3-point polar alignment does a really good job polar aligning. And you can use different ways. The default will align it on the North Celestial Pole in the Northern Hemisphere, Polaris in this particular example, or near Polaris, because Polaris is not exactly at the center of the pole. And another way you can do it is after you align it that way, slew to your target and then do a polar alignment with the settings set on the target itself. And that should eliminate any doubts whether you're polar aligned on that target. And that's, of course, the most important thing is to be polar aligned, particularly on a target. If your mount is not exactly level, you might see some differences and so forth. So polar aligning, very important. The next step is connecting the equipment. Well, the biggest piece of equipment is the camera. And in this case, the camera right here is a dedicated astrophotography camera. It's the in this particular example, it's the ZWO ASI 071 one-shot color camera. And I have a field flattener on here to help giving me smooth edges all the way out, or smooth stars all the way out to the edges. You connect it to the telescope itself, take out the device there, and slip it in. I have it set right there, and lock it down. And then you want to connect it, power supply right here, and then the USB 3 connection right here. And these are connected directly into the mini computer right over here. So I have these connected now. Also, I need to connect to make sure the connection is to my guide scope. The guide scope will tell the mount that if it's off guiding a little bit, it tells it to get back on track and to make the minor corrections in the overall guiding. Supposedly, under theory, if you have perfect polar alignment, you should not need to use a guide scope. But it's almost, well, I have never gotten perfect alignment. But the guide scope does help. And I'm able to get 5, 7, even up to 10-minute guiding with this system right here, using the polar alignment guide on the mount and the guide scope itself, making any corrections that needed throughout the nighttime hours. Also, seeing is very important. If you don't have good seeing, your guide camera will be off a little bit, and you might end up with stars that are not perfectly round, but could show up as egg-shaped or even streaks if the guiding goes bluey during the night because of poor seeing, high thin clouds, high humidity, and what have you. So the other thing I got connected on here are the dew straps, and they connect it directly into the, I have a controller over on this side that connects the dew straps, and they supply the heat to the areas around the lenses so that they don't dew up during the nighttime hours. I have one on the main refractor and another one on the guide scope itself. If your guide scope dews up, you're not going to get good guiding. So it's important that you have a dew strap on the guide scope and, of course, on the main objective lens as well. Another accessory, you don't need it, but it sure comes in handy, is an autofocuser. And the autofocuser over here is on the back end of the focus train, and it also has a USB connection into the computer. So with all that, everything is connected away. A little wasp was flying around me there. With the focus controller, that also is connected to the mini computer. I have it connected through this hub right here. And if you notice, I have everything connected so that the computer and all the connections except one follow the scope itself. So I should not have any cable snags, he said. Should not have any cable snags throughout the nighttime hours, as most of the systems are following the declination and the right ascension of the telescope itself. That was the right ascension, I mean the declination. The right ascension over here, again, you can see everything is following. The only connection that is not is the power supply to the mount itself, and the cable coming down from the power supplies to the computer itself. Those are the only two cables dangling away from the mount that don't follow the mount itself, but there's enough lag on them so that I should not have to worry about cable snags throughout the nighttime hours. The next thing is to connect the telescope upstairs. So what I'm going to do now is turn on the power. The power is off. I'm going to turn on the power, and then we're going to go back upstairs.
I'm inside now, and let's go to the computer. So first of all, I want to go to the remote connection from my desktop over to telescope number 2. And here it is right here. And I'm going to hit connect. And it connects to the computer if everything is set up properly, which it has been, obviously. That's one of the key things. You have to set up your mini computer from the telescope into the Windows 10 remote connection format. You have to be on the same network, or usually the same network that your desktop is on. Now, I also put in a Wi-Fi broadcast extender outside, and this really helps with the connection. I have a very strong Wi-Fi connection. As you can see right here, the Wi-Fi is very, very strong. Well, you can't see it right there because I was in the way. I moved myself on the other side of the camera so you can see this area right down in here. My Wi-Fi connection is very strong since I have a Wi-Fi booster outside, which connects to all my telescopes easily now. So that helps. Make sure you have a good Wi-Fi connection. If not, you might have to run a network cable out to your system, but that's just another cable you have to deal with. But with Wi-Fi, things are really good. So anyway, I'm connected now with telescope number 2, as you can see right here. And when you start the connections up, you want to make sure you have all your proper software and drivers on board. So you have to load in all the different programs. Like I got Stellarium, SharpCap, PhD2. I have my Pegasus motor control software on here. Of course, EQ mod, you need that. One of the telescopes uses a pocket power box, not this one, but another one does. And still another one uses CPWI for Celestron information. Of course, Nina, you have to have Nina. And also, you need to have your ASCOM platform updated and loaded on this system. And of course, all the drivers for your cameras that you'll be needing as well. So make sure all that is loaded into your system. Then from there, you can go into Nina and open up Nina. I like using Nina. Others prefer, I guess, Sequence Generator Pro or Astrophotography tools. But Nina is very, very good. And I like them so much. I support them. I give them a couple bucks a month just to say thank you. Anyway, through their Patreon. It's one thing nice about Nina is you can go to the Connect All button, which is down over here behind me. So I'm going to move myself over there. Okay, now you can see the connect button. You click on that, connect all, yes. Let's say connect all devices, okay. I'm doing that, and it goes through all the devices, and there you can see it's successful loading in the devices. I have a little error message there with ASCOM driver unable to Pegasus Astro controller. I need to go down and just unplug it and plug it back in, and that'll take care of that. So PhD, it didn't connect at first, and then it connected, so it's all good and ready to go. So once you have all that, you can just say close all, and there we go. So once everything is connected, then I can go into my imaging session for tonight. And one of the first things I do, though, it's very important for good tracking purposes, is to polar align the scope again. I always like to polar align it also on the target itself. So let's go ahead and try to do that. Well, let's not try. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into 3-point polar alignment. Okay, let's do that right here. And I'm going to center it on target. Start from current position. Yes, on. All right, let's hit go. See how far off we are, and then I'll go downstairs outside and take the little portable laptop with me and log into that computer downstairs at the telescope, and then I'll adjust the knobs as requested by the 3-point polar alignment routine. All right, it's taking its second image right now. Okay, I got some errors here. So I'm going to go downstairs and make the corrections and see what happens here. We're off by 2 minutes in the azimuth and 4 minutes in the altitude. Okay, I just finished the polar alignment on the target, and there you can see the azimuth error has decreased greatly. It's less than a minute, and the well, the altitude arrow is right there at 0. You can't get better than that. We'll see. Okay, now let's go back to the target itself, and this usually fluctuates a little bit. Okay, back to the framing. There it is right there. That's M101. Let's take a, let's put the guider on first of all. Select a star. Oh, that looks much better, doesn't it? Okay, and start tracking there. All right, and let's start an exposure. Okay. All right, let's see what the first image looks like. The guiding still is not perfect at all, but it's still kind of low in the sky. Okay, I'm coming up to first 5-minute image on M101, and tracking during a full moon is not the easiest thing in the world. So as you can see, the graphing is not that great, but there's the picture right there. Let's zoom in and see how the stars look anyway. And well, they look pretty round. That's pretty good, 5-minute exposure. There I am. I'm going to close up shop for the rest of the night, and we'll pick this up again for tomorrow. So with that being said, yeah, happy viewing for now. See you later. So now it's the next day, and I slept through the night, but I let the sequence run throughout the night, getting all the images I could get on M101, the Pinwheel Galaxy up in Ursa Major. And some thin clouds did pass through off and on throughout the night, but I ended up with just shy of 3 hours worth of data. I had 2 hours and 55 minutes worth of data, so that was pretty good. And after I got up this morning, I did my calibration frames by using the wizard here in Nina, the flat wizard, and I just put the white t-shirt over the lens and pointed it up toward the northern sky, and right at sunrise, so I had no major glare on the system, and took my flats and then my dark flats right there. And then from there, I had my calibration frames done. I was able to exit out of the Nina. One thing nice about Nina, you could just click on this little device over here in the lower left-hand corner. You see it over here, and just click on that and say disconnect all devices, and say yeah. It disconnects everything for you, so that's really, really nice. And then you can exit out of the program, and everything is well. And then I could close down the computer after I transfer all the files from this computer into my main computer, so I can do the work on that. I processed a picture last night in Deep Sky Stacker, and then PixInsight, and then Photoshop, and here it is right here. This is the Whirlpool. No, it's not the Whirlpool. It looks like the Whirlpool Galaxy. It's not. It's the Pinwheel Galaxy in Ursa Major. It's about 21 million light years away, and the number of stars is amazing. It's about not a billion, a trillion stars in this galaxy right here. About 21, just shy of 21 million light years away. And this was the product from PixInsight. And then after doing a little work in PixInsight and been pushing it over to Photoshop, this is my final image. Now, considering the moon was full last night, there was a lot of light pollution out there. That Optolong L Pro filter did help a lot with the image right here, as you can see. Not too bad for a full moon, and I'm getting excited to take this picture in a dark moon night and a clear sky. So hopefully that'll be coming up fairly soon. The moon just passed full, so I have at least another week or so before the moon gets out of the picture. And we'll go with that. You know, it's amazing to me that you can take one of these mini computers like this right here, and this is a full Windows 10 computer. Nowadays, they're Windows 11. And with this, you can set it up as a remote computer on your rig outside and then connect to it by remote desktop connection. But it's just a full Windows 10 computer. And this is a big one. They come about half this size now in some other varieties as well. But this one was like $150. So it doesn't break the bank to get this secondary computer. As a matter of fact, I have 3 of them because I have 3 different rigs. And this is telescope number 3 right here. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching. I hope the things worked out for you and it helped this give you an idea what to expect. Now, let's go over the outline here. So, connecting the rig, here are the steps we need to follow. First of all, set up a mini computer, just like one of these right here, so that'll be available for remote desktop connection. You have to do that inside, but once that's all set up, then you can connect it remotely to your system via Wi-Fi or a network connection. I use Wi-Fi. And then load all the software and drivers onto the mini computer. You'll need the camera, focuser, and filter wheel drivers, for example. Also, your ASCOM platform, your ASTAP for plate solving, captured software such as Nina, Astrophotography tool, or Sequence Generator Pro, just name a few. And get your software, capture software that you like, loaded on the computer. Establish a good Wi-Fi connection. That helps a lot, so you don't have any lag in between your mouse controls and keyboard controls while you're remote into the telescope itself. If you're not able to get a good Wi-Fi connection, you might need to run a network cable out to the rig. Now, connect all equipment to the USB ports and try to use good cable management. Well, I tell you, I haven't done that in the past, and I have ripped through so many USB cables. Fortunately, my equipment was never damaged, but the cables, well, make a long story short, I have a surplus of cables that I bought because I know I'm eventually going to rip one of those cables up somehow or another. And with it out being in the garden too, you can't rule out the lawnmower and the weed trimmer. Connect all power nodes from the power supply to the systems, particularly the rig itself, the mount, and the computers and the cameras. They a lot of times will require extra 12-volt power supply input. So make sure you have ample power, because if you don't have enough power, you could have problems with running the rig, particularly if you're using dew straps, with the dew straps pulling in a lot of excess power, sometimes 3 to 4 amps of power. A 10 amp power supply will be ideal. You can get away with 5 if you don't have any dew straps, but I would go with at least 10 amp. And the most important aspect of all, make sure your scope is properly polar aligned. So I hope this really gives you some idea how I set up my system. And if you haven't already set up a remote system, that is some of the steps you could use. You don't have to use these steps. There's other ways of doing it as well. And there are other platforms you could use for, like, for example, the ZWO system that uses their iPhone and tablet connection, so you can run everything through the tablet or your phone. But anyway, these are the things. And you know, I just love this hobby. And just a few years ago, I didn't have remote desktop connection available, and I was outside with my laptop with the bugs and the humidity in the summertime, and of course in the wintertime it's cold. It's not so bad here in Savannah in the wintertime, but in the summertime it is miserable outside at night. The air is just loaded with moisture and bugs. Lots of bugs and frogs. You probably have seen some of my videos in the past of all the frogs croaking away outside during the nighttime hours. It actually hurts the ears. Anyway, I just love this hobby so much. I just love sharing these images with you and techniques that I discovered over the time with you. And, you know, if you'd like to support my channel, you know, go ahead and hit subscribe if you haven't already subscribed there at the bottom of the page. And, of course, if you like this video, hit like. That's important because the YouTube algorithm actually, it seems to me, lives off those like buttons and the comments. If you have comments, put them down in below as well. And if you're so inclined, if you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee, you can buy me a cup of coffee. There it is right there. Buy me a cup of coffee. I love my coffee. I've got a cup right here. Love my coffee. Anyway, you don't have to. You know, I just want to let you know that it's available out there. And I continue to look up into the heavens because it's just fascinates me. I'm 73 years old and I'm still fascinated by what's up in the sky. I've been fascinated ever since I was 7 years old when my uncle bought my brother and me a small refractor telescope, and I saw the moon and a couple of the planets, and I was just amazed, and I was hooked ever since. So it's amazing what's out there. And remember, it's all available in a sky near you. The majestic wonders of our universe. So until next time, unless you need rain, clear skies, everyone.